Australia is a truly unique country, located very far away on the map. Its history is full of surprising events and often strange stories. People from Europe first came to live there many years ago, and they found a huge land. This land had unusual animals and a very different natural world. Life was often difficult for the new settlers, and many unexpected things happened as the country slowly grew. One of the most surprising events in Australia's past is something truly unbelievable. Think about a modern army. This army has good training, powerful weapons like machine guns, and very smart leaders. Now, imagine this strong army goes to war. But their enemy is not another country or any group of people. Instead, their enemy is a large group of birds. These were not small birds, but very large, fast, and powerful birds. And in this strange war, the army lost. Yes, a real army with modern guns was defeated by birds. This event might sound like a funny story, or perhaps something from a made-up tale. But it truly happened in Australia. It makes you ask, how could this possibly be true? How could trained soldiers, using advanced tools for their time, be beaten by wild animals? What strange series of events in Australia led to such a bizarre conflict? This book will tell you the full story of one of history's most unusual and surprising conflicts. It is a true account about how a country, its people, and some very determined birds came to fight a memorable war. Prepare to discover the Emu War, a conflict that stands out as one of the most remarkable battles ever fought. 2. A new home. After losing the American colonies, Britain faced a major challenge. The American lands had served as a distant place to send its many prisoners. Now, British jails were overflowing. The government urgently needed a new solution for its growing number of criminals. They decided to transport these people to a far-off land across the ocean. Earlier, European sailors had sighted a huge island continent in the South Pacific. The Dutch had called this land New Holland. Later, in 1769, Captain James Cook, a British explorer, sailed along its eastern coast. He officially named it New South Wales. This land was vast and often harsh, home to unique animals and many groups of indigenous people. For years, European nations considered it too remote and dangerous for large-scale settlement. However, Britain's need became urgent. So, on January 26, 1788, a group of 11 ships, known as the First Fleet, arrived. They established the first European settlement at Sydney Cove. This marked the beginning of the New South Wales colony, primarily set up as a penal colony. This meant it was a place where criminals were sent to serve their time and help build the new settlement. Over time, free settlers, not prisoners, also began to arrive from Europe. They were seeking new opportunities and a better life away from the problems of their home countries. These new arrivals slowly expanded across the enormous continent. They established new farms and built towns, which led to the displacement of the native populations. Early farming in Australia was difficult due to the dry land. However, the vast open plains were excellent for raising livestock, especially sheep, which produced valuable wool. Then, a significant event changed everything. Gold was discovered. This exciting news caused a massive rush of people to Australia. Men and women came from many different countries, hoping to find wealth and build a new future. The gold rush created a big economic boom. More money flowed into the colonies, and the population grew rapidly. This period brought great prosperity and helped shape Australia into a developing land of opportunity. 3. A big farm. In 1901, a big change happened in Australia. All the separate colonies joined together to form one large nation. It was called the Commonwealth of Australia. This was a new beginning for the young country, a time to build a strong future. The wealth from the past gold rush helped to create a thriving economy focused on exports. Australia quickly became an important agricultural country. Its vast, flat, and often dry land was perfect for raising animals. Farmers grew many crops, especially in a fertile area of Western Australia known as the Wheat Belt. This region produced a lot of grain. But the biggest success came from raising livestock, like many sheep for wool and cattle for meat. Wool became a very big export, selling well to other countries around the world. To feed these growing numbers of farm animals, farmers brought in new types of grass from Africa. These foreign grasses, such as Kikuyu grass, grew very well in Australia's dry conditions and spread quickly across the land. However, this new grass brought an unexpected problem. It provided a lot more food for Australia's native animals, especially plant eaters like kangaroos and emus. Emus are large, fast birds that eat plants. At the same time, to protect their sheep and cattle from harm, farmers also hunted Australia's native predators. They hunted dingoes, a wild dog, and completely removed the Tasmanian tiger, making it extinct. With a huge new food supply and fewer animals to hunt them, the numbers of kangaroos and especially emus grew very, very large in many parts of the country. Then, in 1914, the First World War began in Europe. Australia, as a young nation within the British Empire, decided to help. Many young Australian men volunteered to fight. About 30% of all Australian men went overseas to join the war, showing great loyalty. They fought bravely in far-off places like Gallipoli in Turkey, facing terrible conditions. The war was very long and brutal. Australia suffered greatly, making a huge sacrifice. 62,000 Australian soldiers died, which was about 1.2% of the entire country's population at that time. Thousands more came home badly wounded or sick, some with diseases like Spanish flu, and others with serious mental health problems, then called shell shock. The war ended, but its effects lasted a long time for Australia, deeply impacting many families and communities across the nation. 4. Hard times. Australia fought bravely in World War I. Many men went to fight, and many were hurt or died. When the war ended, soldiers came home, but the government needed to help them find jobs and homes. It was a big problem across the country. The government had a plan, like in old Roman times when soldiers were given land. Australian soldiers could get land to farm. In Western Australia, there was a large area called the Wheat Belt. This land was cheap, but not always the best for farming. Over 5,000 soldiers accepted this offer. Many British people also came, looking for a new life after the war. They began setting up new farms and homes. Life was very hard for these new farmers. The government had promised help and money, but this support was very slow to arrive. Many farmers had never worked the land before. Their crops did not grow well, and they could not make a profit. Some people gave up and went back to the city of Perth in frustration. But the soldiers, they were determined. They worked hard, and by the year 1929, many farms were finally doing well. They were growing large amounts of wheat. Then, in 1929, a terrible event happened. The world's economy crashed. This period became known as the Great Depression. Australia's economy also suffered greatly. Many countries stopped buying goods from Australia, so farmers could not sell their wheat. Many people lost their jobs. Unemployment rose very high, reaching 30%. People left their farms and moved to cities because they were desperate. The Australian government, led by Prime Minister James Scullin, tried to help. They promised to buy wheat from farmers to keep them working. They also promised a lot of money to support them. However, these promises were not kept. Wheat prices fell very low, and the government did not provide the promised funds. Farmers became very angry. They refused to sell their grain. By 1932, the situation was dire. Western Australia, home to many of these wheat farmers, was particularly upset. Some people even talked about leaving the country and forming their own state. It seemed things could not get any worse. 5. The birds attack. The emu is a very large bird. It can be 6 feet tall and weigh over 100 pounds. Emus are very fast, running up to 30 miles per hour. They have strong legs and sharp claws. Emus are like living dinosaurs. They are usually focused on eating, but can be dangerous if bothered. A big problem started because of new types of grass. Farmers brought African grasses to feed their sheep and cows. These grasses grew very well in Australia. They grew faster than the native plants. More grass meant more food for animals that eat plants, like kangaroos and emus. At the same time, Australia lost its natural predators. Dingoes were hunted, and the thylacine, or Tasmanian tiger, became extinct. These animals used to hunt emus and kangaroos. Without their natural enemies and with more food, the number of emus grew very quickly. Then a big drought came. There was not enough water for the emus in their usual areas. So many emus started to move. They moved towards the coast where the new farms were. About 20,000 to 30,000 emus formed large groups called mobs. These mobs were heading right for the farmlands. When the emus reached the farms, they caused a lot of damage. They walked through fields of wheat, eating and flattening the crops. Farmers had built fences to keep out rabbits, but these fences were no problem for the emus. The big birds just knocked them down or stepped over them. This also let rabbits into the fields, causing even more damage. The emus destroyed the crops. They also ruined the soil. Many farmers lost everything. One senator described how the emus rolled down crops like chickens in a yard. He also said that normal fences could not stop them. Shooting them with rifles was not effective because the emus would run away after just 1 or 2 shots. The farmers were desperate. They needed help to stop this attack on their livelihoods. 6. The soldiers come. The farmers were desperate. Their crops were being destroyed by the huge numbers of emus. They needed immediate help. A group of veteran farmers went to the defense minister, Sir George Pierce. They asked for powerful machine guns to fight the birds and stop the damage. The government listened to their pleas, but decided on a different plan for how to help. Instead of giving guns to the farmers directly, the government decided to send the army. Major G.P.W. Meredith was chosen to lead this special mission. He had only 2 soldiers with him, Sergeant S. McMurray and Gunner J. Howeren. They carried 2 Lewis machine guns, which were strong military weapons for that time. The government also sent a film crew from Australian Movietone along with them. The plan was to film the army winning against the emus. This film would be used as propaganda, showing the government effectively solving the problem and looking good to the public. The soldiers planned to start their mission on November 2, 1932. They traveled to the farming area near the town of Campion in Western Australia. However, nature caused the first delay. A long dry period in the region suddenly ended, and heavy rain fell for 2 weeks. This bad weather stopped the army from starting any operations. It built character, but also frustration. Finally, the rain stopped. On November 2, the soldiers, working with local farmers, tried to herd the emus. They hoped to guide the birds into one small open area where the machine guns could be most effective. But the emus were very clever. They sensed the danger of being hunted. The large groups of birds quickly broke apart into many smaller mobs and ran away in different directions. Sergeant McMurray and Gunner Howeren started shooting with their machine guns. They fired from a long distance, and because the emus were fast and far, many shots missed their targets. The birds ran even faster. The soldiers tried to move quickly to a better position to aim, but it was difficult. They managed to kill only a few birds as they fled. By the end of this first day, they had killed only about 17 emus. This was much less than they had hoped for, and it used a lot of ammunition. The soldiers then tried a new plan. They knew that emus, like all animals, needed water. So they decided to set a trap. They would wait for the birds at a local dam, a water source. Over 1,000 emus eventually came to the dam to drink. Major Meredith saw the perfect chance. He gave the order to fire. Both machine guns roared to life, spraying bullets into the panicked birds. But then a big problem happened. Both of the powerful Lewis guns stopped working. They jammed almost immediately after starting to fire. The soldiers quickly tried to fix their weapons. They worked hard to clear the jams. But by the time they managed to clear the guns, the emus were gone. The birds had scattered in a panic. The army and farmers searched the area for the rest of the day, but they found no more emus to shoot. The ambush had failed badly, and the soldiers realized these birds were proving to be very difficult enemies. They needed new ideas to fight these clever, fast birds. 7. The army loses. A new idea was tried: putting a machine gun on a farmer's truck. The soldiers hoped this would help them chase the fast emus. But this plan failed badly. The old trucks from the 1920s had very stiff suspension. This made the ride bumpy. Also, the trucks were slower than the emus when driving across rough land. The emus could run at 30 miles per hour. The truck could not keep up. When the soldiers tried to shoot from the moving truck, it was almost impossible to aim. The gun shook too much. Ammunition was wasted, spraying in all directions. Only once did they manage to hit an emu by running it over. This caused the truck to swerve and crash through a farmer's fence, causing more damage. The film crew, brought to make propaganda, recorded these failures. The government likely destroyed the footage later. The emus also showed they were very smart. Army observers saw that the birds changed their ways. Large groups of emus started using lookouts. These were often taller male emus. They would stand tall, using their long necks to look for danger. If soldiers came close, the lookout emu would signal and the whole mob would run away. It became very hard for Major Meredith's men to get near enough to shoot. The soldiers had some small successes, killing a few birds here and there. But the emu's body was tough. They had thick feathers and strong muscles. Their vital organs were hard to hit. This meant many bullets did not kill them, and the birds would escape, sometimes injured. The army used a lot of bullets. They had 10,000 rounds of ammunition. They fired 2,500 bullets, but they killed only about 250 emus. This meant 10 bullets were needed for each bird killed. This was a very bad trade. News of the army's failures reached Canberra, the capital city. People in Parliament started asking difficult questions. One member of Parliament, Mr. Harold Thornby, asked why machine guns were being used on trucks to hunt birds. He wanted to know who was paying for this expensive and strange operation. Soon, the Treasury Office also received bills. One bill asked a farmer to pay for the ammunition used by the soldiers on his land. This made the public even angrier. People made jokes about the war. They wondered why the army, which fought in World War I, could not defeat birds. Facing much shame and criticism, the military decided to stop the operation. Major Meredith reported that the mission was too hard. He talked about the many bullets used, the problems with the emu's tactics, and the casualties suffered. He even joked that one casualty was the Army's dignity. The soldiers were called back. The Emu War was a big defeat for the Australian Army. 8. A new plan. After the soldiers left, the emus returned to the wheat fields of Western Australia. They came back in large groups, causing even more destruction to crops and fences. Farmers, feeling desperate and angry, once again called for help from the government. Despite the previous failures, the government felt pressure to act. Major Meredith and his small team were sent back into the field on November 13, 1932. This time, they tried a more organized approach. There were no grand ambushes or clever strategies. Instead, the men walked through the fields, methodically shooting single emus with short bursts of machine gun fire. This slow, steady method started to work. In the first 3 days, they killed 50 emus, and soon they were killing over 100 per week. However, despite this progress, the war remained unpopular. Politicians and newspapers continued to mock the military's efforts, focusing on the high cost and embarrassing nature of the campaign. Because of public ridicule and expense concerns, the government ordered the soldiers to withdraw again. Major Meredith reported almost 1,000 confirmed emu kills, but at a high cost in ammunition. The government finally decided on a different solution. They introduced a bounty system, paying farmers for every emu they killed. They also provided 500,000 rounds of ammunition. This was the successful plan. Farmers, who knew the land best, quickly took action. Within just 6 months, 50,000 emu bounties were claimed. This solved the immediate problem. The Emu War is remembered as a humorous military failure. It is a story often told, overshadowing Australia's other successful military actions. What do you think was the most important reason the bounty system worked better than the army?
Hey there! Just a second before you go. If you learned something new today, please give this video a like, write your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel. It only takes a second, and it really, really helps to create even better English videos for you. Your support means the world. Thank you.